What we're seeing in early 2026 isn't a normal correction. It's a sharp unwind in some of the most overextended housing markets in the country. Equity is disappearing fast, and inventory is climbing to levels we haven't seen since 2008. So we're taking a fast trip across the 10 cities falling the hardest. Places where sellers are stressed, buyers are scarce, and listings are piling up. From Florida to the West Coast, no region is untouched, but some are collapsing much faster than others. Pay close attention to number 1. It's a major U.S. city where ownership is becoming nearly impossible because the insurance system is breaking down. If you want to stay ahead of what's coming, like the video, subscribe for clear, data-driven updates, and comment which city you think hits bottom first. Let's get started. Number 10. Myrtle Beach. Your road trip kicks off along the East Coast where you pass endless stretches of vacation condos, balconies bare, windows dark, and not a suitcase in sight. Welcome to Myrtle Beach, where the quiet feels almost unsettling. At the height of the pandemic frenzy, this shoreline became a symbol of the short-term rental craze. People rushed in convinced they'd struck gold. Buy a second property, throw it up on Airbnb, and watch the passive income roll in. That fantasy has since unraveled, and it didn't go gently. Cruising down Ocean Boulevard now, the mood has completely shifted. The towering condo buildings don't feel like opportunity anymore. They feel anxious, almost strained. Listings are piling up faster than buyers can absorb them, and many owners can't afford to keep holding on. The numbers coming out of this beach town are brutal if your name is on a deed. Local realtor reports show active condo listings have jumped more than 55% compared to this time last year. That's not a small bump. That's a flood of supply suffocating demand. At the same time, pending sales have fallen by 28%, a clear sign that buyers aren't just hesitant, they've largely stepped away altogether. Prices, predictably, are sliding. Over the past year alone, the median sale price for single-family homes has dropped 9%. That's a sharp correction in just 12 months. Then there's the time factor. According to Redfin, the average property here is sitting on the market for more than 90 days. That's 3 straight months of covering the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, all while rental bookings remain scarce. Investors who finance these purchases with adjustable-rate mortgages are feeling the squeeze the hardest. As rates reset higher, monthly payments climb, and cash flow disappears. Foreclosure filings in Horry County have risen 19% quarter over quarter, a sign that many first-time landlords are burning through whatever reserves they had left. Perhaps the most staggering metric comes from AirDNA, which tracks short-term rental performance. Revenue per available room in Myrtle Beach has plunged 22%, largely because the number of available rentals now far exceeds actual travel demand. This is textbook boom and bust behavior. A market overheats, speculation takes over, and eventually gravity wins. Right now, Myrtle Beach isn't booming, it's frozen solid. What once looked like an easy passive income play has become a heavy financial burden. And as you stare up at rows of empty balconies overlooking the ocean, it becomes painfully obvious. For many owners, the only realistic exit may be a short sale. Number 9. Baton Rouge. As you continue west along the Gulf Coast, you roll into Baton Rouge. And the thick humidity isn't the only thing making the air feel heavy. There's a different kind of pressure building here, one that goes far beyond elevated interest rates. Louisiana's capital is caught in a storm that's uniquely its own. Driving through residential streets, you can't help but notice peeling paint, overgrown lawns, and deferred repairs. It's not neglect out of laziness. It's the quiet evidence of homeowners stretched too thin to handle even routine maintenance. What's unfolding here is a double hit: sharply rising holding costs paired with a local economy that's barely moving. People aren't relocating in. They're packing up and leaving. The insurance situation alone is staggering. According to figures released by the state insurance commissioner, average homeowners insurance premiums in this parish have surged by 45% in just 1 year. That kind of jump doesn't just sting. It obliterates household budgets. A property that appears manageable on paper suddenly becomes impossible once the real monthly costs are factored in. It's no surprise, then, that listings are stacking up. The local MLS shows inventory climbing 40% compared to last year, as owners rush to sell homes they can no longer afford to insure. demand isn't coming to the rescue either. Data from Realtor.com reveals that page views for Baton Rouge properties have fallen 35%, a clear signal that buyers aren't even browsing, let alone bidding. Migration trends paint an even bleaker picture. Estimates from the United States Census Bureau indicate the metro area lost nearly 1% of its population last year, continuing an outward flow that steadily erodes housing demand. Fewer residents inevitably translate into softer prices, and prices are, in fact, sliding. According to Zillow, home values in Baton Rouge have declined by about 6% over the past 12 months. Meanwhile, financial distress is becoming harder to ignore. Atom Data Solutions reports that the city now has one of the highest foreclosure rates in the region, with roughly 1 in every 1,000 homes facing a filing. That's not a minor uptick. It's a warning flare. Even the rental market, which sometimes acts as a cushion during downturns, offers little comfort. Data from Apartment List shows occupancy rates slipping to 88%, meaning more units are sitting vacant and landlords are losing leverage. There's a weight to this place right now. Living expenses keep climbing, yet property values are drifting lower. For many residents, it feels like being caught in a tightening financial vice, one that squeezes a little harder with each passing month. Number 8. Lakeland. You head farther south into the core of the Sunshine State, but the optimism Florida is known for feels noticeably absent in Lakeland. Nestled between Tampa and Orlando, this city once marketed itself as the practical alternative, the place people landed after being priced out of those larger, flashier metros. Now, instead of being the affordable backup plan, Lakeland has become a case study in what happens when supply spirals out of balance. As you wind through expansive subdivisions that sprang up almost overnight during the boom years, a pattern jumps out immediately. Nearly every for sale sign has a bright rider announcing a price cut. Builders pushed hard, betting demand would stay red hot, and investors who scooped up properties in bulk are suddenly trying to unload them, all at the same time. The data confirms what you're seeing on the ground. According to figures from the Lakeland Realtors Association, the number of homes listed for sale has surged by 112% compared to 2 years ago. That's not a modest increase. That's inventory more than doubling and flooding the market. With that much competition, sellers are being forced to adjust. And quickly. Redfin reports that about 42% of current listings in Lakeland have reduced their asking price in just the past month. Nearly half the market is effectively acknowledging that their original expectations were far too ambitious. After skyrocketing during the pandemic frenzy, the median sale price has now reversed course, dropping 8% year over year. What once looked like unstoppable appreciation has clearly lost momentum. Large-scale investors, who previously accounted for close to 20% of home purchases in this area, are no longer propping things up. Data from CoreLogic shows investor buying activity in the metro has plunged by 60%. That's a massive chunk of demand disappearing almost overnight. Meanwhile, new construction continues to stack up. According to the United States Census Bureau, the number of newly built homes that are finished but still unsold has climbed to its highest level in a decade. Builders are sitting on completed inventory, with fewer qualified buyers stepping forward. The absorption rate, essentially how long it would take to clear the current supply at today's sales pace, has stretched to 5 months, pushing Lakeland firmly into buyer's market territory. It feels like a game of musical chairs where the music has abruptly stopped, except instead of chairs, there are thousands of houses, and not nearly enough people willing or able to claim them. Sellers can sense it. The peak has come and gone, and now many are scrambling, cutting prices repeatedly as they chase the market downward. Number 7. Boise. Leaving the South behind, you make your way toward the Pacific Northwest and pull into Boise, a city that, not long ago, became the poster child for the remote work housing frenzy. Just 3 years back, trying to buy a home here meant bracing yourself for bidding wars that routinely pushed offers $50,000 or more above asking. Fast forward to today, and as you cruise through the picturesque neighborhoods tucked against the foothills, the atmosphere feels completely different. Many of the out-of-state buyers, especially those arriving from California with high-paying tech jobs, are now facing a new reality. Some are being summoned back to physical offices, while others are discovering that local salary levels simply can't justify the sky-high prices they paid. The after effects of the pandemic boom are hitting Boise with unusual force. What's happening here isn't a mild pullback. It's a prolonged and painful correction. According to the Boise Regional Realtors, the median home price has fallen nearly 18% from its 2022 peak, and the downward trend is still unfolding as we move through 2026. For buyers who purchased near the top, that decline translates into staggering losses in equity. In many cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars erased. Homes that once triggered weekend bidding frenzies are now lingering on the market. The average listing is sitting for about 65 days, a dramatic shift from the near-instant sales that defined the boom years. Inventory levels remain elevated as well. Data from Intermountain MLS shows supply running roughly 30% higher than the pre-pandemic norm, adding persistent pressure to prices. The deeper issue is affordability. In Ada County, the Housing Affordability Index has dropped to historic lows, indicating that the typical local worker can only afford about 60% of the median-priced home. That mismatch between incomes and housing costs has created a structural imbalance. Unsurprisingly, transaction volume has taken a hit, falling 25% compared to last year. Builders are reacting defensively. Permit data shows a 40% reduction in new single-family construction as developers attempt to prevent even more oversupply. The rental sector, which once offered investors a safety valve, is also losing steam. Vacancy rates have climbed to 7%, undermining the high rent assumptions many investors relied on to justify their mortgage payments. As you leave the city limits, it's hard not to see Boise as a cautionary example of what happens when prices detach from the economic fundamentals beneath them. The adjustment underway is severe. And for those who bought at the absolute peak, much of their equity has effectively vanished. Number 6. Phoenix. You push south into the blistering desert and arrive in Phoenix, a metro that seems to be overheating in more ways than just temperature. The sun is relentless, but the pressure in the housing market feels even more intense. What's unfolding here resembles a liquidation more than a slowdown. Phoenix became ground zero for algorithm-driven home buying during the boom. Corporate players like Opendoor and OfferPad scooped up thousands of properties using automated pricing models that assumed appreciation would continue indefinitely. Those assumptions have unraveled, and now those same companies are offloading homes into a market that's already saturated. Driving through the sprawling grid of neighborhoods across Maricopa County, you notice something unsettling. Clusters of vacant homes scattered block after block. They stand as quiet reminders of just how speculative this market became only a few years ago. The data coming out of what's known as the Valley of the Sun is hard to ignore. According to the Cromford report, active supply is running about 40% above what's considered normal for this time of year. That's a severe imbalance between sellers and buyers. When inventory stretches that far beyond demand, prices inevitably react. The median sale price per square foot has fallen 10% over the past year, signaling that values are eroding at a meaningful pace. Foreclosure activity is beginning to climb as well. Atom Data Solutions ranks Phoenix among the top 5 major metros for foreclosure starts, which have risen 22% as investors abandon properties that no longer pencil out. Adding another layer of uncertainty, long-term water concerns are starting to weigh on buyer confidence. Recent limits on new development tied to groundwater shortages have raised serious questions about future growth, and that uncertainty is filtering directly into property values. Demand has clearly cooled. Pending listings are down 18% compared to last year, reflecting a sharp retreat from both local buyers and out-of-state transplants who once flooded this market. The short-term rental segment is also struggling. Data from AirDNA shows vacation rental occupancy in Phoenix down 15%, pushing many hosts to exit and list their properties for sale instead. Sellers, sensing the shift, are sweetening deals just to close transactions. Nearly 55% of completed sales now include concessions, credits, rate buydowns, or repair allowances, simply to get buyers across the finish line. Phoenix famously rebounded from the last housing collapse. But standing here today, looking at the swelling inventory and weakening demand, it feels less like a phoenix rising, and more like a market slowly settling back into dust. Number 5. Cape Coral. You steer back toward Florida's steamy Gulf Coast and cross into Cape Coral, a city carved out by canals and fueled for years by aggressive speculation. Nearly every neighborhood here is laced with man-made waterways, and during the boom, that waterfront promise drew in waves of eager buyers. Now, the mood has shifted dramatically. Cape Coral has become a focal point of Florida's housing downturn, a flashing red warning sign for other coastal markets that followed a similar path. As you roll over the bridge into town, for sale signs crowd the streets so densely they seem to rival the palm trees lining the sidewalks. This has always been a cyclical market, swinging between highs and lows. But this downturn feels different, faster, heavier, and amplified by a brutal combination of shrinking demand and a full-blown insurance crisis that's pricing ordinary buyers out entirely. From a supply standpoint, the numbers are staggering. Recent MLS figures show active listings up 150% compared to 2 years ago. That's not just an increase, it's a tidal wave of inventory that far exceeds what the current buyer pool can absorb. Homes are stacking up faster than contracts are being written. With so many properties competing for attention, sellers are slashing prices in desperation, often undercutting their neighbors just to stand out. Data from Redfin reveals that nearly 60% of active listings in Cape Coral have reduced their asking price within the past month, the highest rate of price cuts in the country. Values are responding accordingly. The median home price has dropped 12% over the last year, marking one of the sharpest declines anywhere in the Sunshine State. But the true pressure point here is the cost of ownership. For many canal-front properties, flood insurance premiums have tripled. Pair those surging insurance bills with elevated mortgage rates, and the monthly payment for a new buyer can easily double compared to just a few years ago. What once seemed affordable now feels unreachable. Sales activity has dried up. According to the local realtor board, transaction volume is down 35% year over year, a clear indication that buyers have stepped back almost entirely. At the same time, newly built speculative homes sit vacant throughout the city. Builders are dangling incentives of $50,000 or more to entice buyers, yet many of these properties remain unsold. Even investors who once provided a steady stream of demand have pulled back sharply, with their share of purchases cut in half. That retreat removes what used to be a pricing safety net. As you drive alongside the endless canals reflecting the Florida sun, it becomes obvious this isn't just a routine cooling period. It feels more like a rapid unwinding, a sweeping erosion of equity that's pushing many homeowners dangerously close to being underwater. Number 4. San Francisco. You make your way to the West Coast to watch what feels like the unraveling of a titan. San Francisco, once celebrated as the crown jewel of global tech and innovation, now feels markedly diminished compared to its peak years. Cruising through downtown, the stillness is striking. Entire stretches of the city feel hollowed out. The well-known commercial real estate doom loop has taken hold. Vacant office towers lead to shuttered shops, shrinking business activity reduces tax revenue, and public services begin to strain. That downward spiral hasn't stayed confined to office buildings. It's spilled directly into the housing market. Empty storefronts and for-lease signs dominate block after block, casting a mood that makes purchasing property here feel less like an opportunity and more like a gamble. The confidence that once defined San Francisco's identity has been replaced by a sobering recalibration. Residential numbers are now echoing the commercial downturn in ways that are deeply unsettling for homeowners. Data from the California Association of Realtors shows the city's median condo price has fallen to a 10-year low, effectively erasing an entire decade of appreciation. Condo inventory has climbed to historically elevated levels as well, rising 30% compared to last year. A steady outflow of tech professionals seeking more affordable cities has added consistent supply while thinning out demand. The high-end segment, once a pillar of strength, is largely stalled. Sales of properties priced above $3 million have plunged 40%, with many listings sitting for months without attracting a single serious offer. Migration figures from the United States Census Bureau confirm the broader shift. Tens of thousands of residents have left, shrinking the population base and, by extension, the pool of potential home buyers. A declining tax base only compounds the city's fiscal challenges. Even policy interventions have had limited impact. The vacancy tax aimed at discouraging empty units hasn't stemmed the tide of investor exits. If anything, higher carrying costs have encouraged more owners to sell rather than hold. Foreclosure activity, though still below the national average, has doubled over the past year as adjustable rate loans reset at higher payments and investors exhaust their liquidity. Meanwhile, rents, typically a stabilizing force for property values, have fallen 8%. In many cases, leasing a high-end apartment now costs substantially less per month than owning one, further undermining the incentive to buy. What you're witnessing isn't a minor correction. It's a fundamental repricing of one of America's most iconic cities. And judging by the quiet streets and persistent vacancies, the market hasn't yet found its floor. Number 3. Austin. You drive straight into the core of Texas to assess Austin, a city that, during the pandemic frenzy, soared higher and faster than almost any other major metro in the country. For a while, it was treated like the promised land. Tech employees relocating from California and investors flying in from New York piled into the market, pushing home prices up nearly 100% in what felt like the blink of an eye. But what rockets up that quickly rarely stay there. Gravity has reasserted itself, and it hasn't been gentle. Cruising through the vast suburbs of Travis County, you pass subdivision after subdivision filled with brand new houses, freshly painted, neatly landscaped, and completely dark inside. Builders kept accelerating construction even as buyer demand quietly evaporated, leaving behind a massive oversupply that now weighs heavily on the entire metro. The scale of the correction here is striking. According to Zillow, home values across the Austin metro have fallen nearly 20% from their peak. That marks the steepest percentage decline among major U.S. metropolitan areas. For recent buyers, that drop represents an enormous loss of equity. In many cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars simply gone. It doesn't take long to see what's driving the downturn. Realtor.com reports that active listings have tripled compared to pre-pandemic levels. With that much supply on the market, buyers suddenly hold all the negotiating power. Walk into a new construction community today, and you can often negotiate $50,000 to $100,000 below the list price. In many cases, builders are still willing to add incentives, upgraded finishes, rate buydowns, closing cost credits, just to move inventory off their books. The rental side of the equation isn't providing relief either. Data from Apartment List shows that rents in Austin have declined for 14 straight months and are now down 7% year over year. Investors who relied on strong rental income to offset their mortgage payments are facing negative cash flow, forcing many to consider selling at a loss. Homes are also taking much longer to sell. Redfin notes that the median days on market has climbed past 70 days. A dramatic shift from the rapid-fire bidding wars that once defined this city. At the same time, the sale-to-list price ratio has slipped to 96%, meaning most properties are closing below their original asking price. Compounding the issue, tech sector layoffs have thinned the pool of high-income buyers who once fueled Austin's meteoric rise. Elevated property taxes only add another layer of strain for those considering a purchase. As you glance toward a skyline crowded with cranes still erecting new projects, it becomes clear that Austin's adjustment isn't a short-term hiccup. The city built aggressively during the boom, and now it may take years to absorb what was created. Number 2. Oakland. Just across the bay from San Francisco, you arrive in Oakland, and the mood here feels even more unstable. What's happening isn't driven by interest rates alone. There's a deeper erosion underway, rooted in shaken confidence around public safety and local leadership. As you move through different neighborhoods, you pass storefronts that have been staples for decades, now boarded up and empty. Many business owners have openly cited crime and security concerns as the tipping point that forced them to close. When commerce pulls out, property values rarely hold steady. After all, few buyers are eager to pay premium prices in areas where they don't feel comfortable taking an evening walk. There's a palpable frustration in the air, and the housing market is responding with a sharp reset. According to Redfin, the median sale price in Oakland has declined 14% compared to last year, a steeper drop than in its higher-priced neighbor across the bay. That's a significant contraction in a relatively short window. Transaction activity has slowed dramatically as well. Sales volume is down roughly 50% from typical historical levels, largely because buyers are unwilling to step in at price points that no longer align with perceived risk. The competitive frenzy that once defined this market has faded. Homes that previously attracted double-digit offers are now averaging just 2 bids, and in many cases, those offers come in below the seller's asking price. A key measure of balance, months of supply, has climbed to 4.5 months. That shift firmly places Oakland in buyer's market territory for the first time in over 10 years. Policy has also influenced the dynamic. Extended eviction moratoriums and stringent tenant protections, designed with good intentions, have prompted many small landlords to exit. As a result, the MLS is filling up with rental properties that often need significant repairs, adding more inventory that struggles to attract serious interest. Another troubling trend is the surge in delistings. Local figures show sellers are withdrawing properties at a record pace after failing to secure offers high enough to break even. The sense of decline feels tangible. For homeowners who purchased near the market's peak, the downturn represents more than just paper losses. It feels like a collapse of expectations. And as you leave Oakland behind, one conclusion stands out. Until the broader social and economic challenges are addressed, the housing market here may continue searching for its true bottom. Number 1. New Orleans. You've reached the final stop on this journey, and it may be the most sobering one yet. New Orleans claims the top spot not simply because prices are falling, but because the very foundation of homeownership here is under threat. This isn't just about higher rates or cooling demand. It's about insurability. And without insurance, the entire framework of a 30-year mortgage begins to unravel. As you move through the historic, moss-draped streets of the Crescent City, the charm is still there. But financially, something far more fragile is happening beneath the surface. The structural underpinnings that make homeownership possible are buckling. Several major insurance carriers have exited the state altogether, and the public insurer of last resort is facing mounting solvency concerns. The anxiety is palpable. This doesn't feel like a routine downturn. It feels like a scramble to escape. The numbers reinforce that sense of urgency. According to the Louisiana Department of Insurance, wind and flood insurance premiums have surged more than 60% in just a single year for many homeowners. In some cases, the monthly insurance bill now rivals, or even exceeds, the mortgage principal payment itself. Unsurprisingly, listings are climbing. Active inventory has risen 48% as residents attempt to sell before costs spiral further out of reach. But increased supply hasn't translated into transactions. Liquidity has thinned dramatically. Local board data shows the median days on market stretching past 100 days, a clear signal that buyers are hesitant, or simply unwilling, to commit. Prices are weakening, with median values down around 10%, but the more troubling indicator is volume. Homes aren't just selling for less, many aren't selling at all. Foreclosure activity has jumped 30% quarter over quarter, as some owners make the painful decision to walk away rather than shoulder insurance premiums that have, in extreme cases, quadrupled. Population trends add another layer of strain. Data from the United States Census Bureau shows the parish lost roughly 2% of its residents in the past year alone, further shrinking the tax base and reducing housing demand. What's unfolding here isn't primarily a story about monetary policy. It's about climate exposure and the financial consequences that follow. New Orleans has become a warning signal for coastal real estate markets nationwide. A canary in the coal mine struggling to breathe. And with that, the road trip comes to an end. What you've seen across these 10 cities doesn't resemble a brief pullback. It points to something deeper, a structural reshaping of the American housing landscape. Whether driven by insurance breakdowns in the South or tech sector contraction in the West, the forces differ by region, but the outcome is consistent. Significant wealth erosion for those caught off guard. We're still in the early stages of what could be an extended deleveraging cycle. If this analysis helped you better understand the financial shifts unfolding in 2026, consider supporting the channel by liking the video.